Hi lovelies, Lauren here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you're all well. For today's practice, I'm not going to be taking you through a full flow or a full class, but what I thought I'd do is break down a traditional headstand. But before we get into it, as I say, I'm not going to be taking you through a warm-up, so I fully advise you take yourselves through your own warm-up, maybe do a couple of sun salutations, maybe even follow one of my previous videos, just to make sure your body is really nice and warm before attempting this inversion. I'm going to be breaking down a couple of ways you could come into the posture, finding that foundation, that sturdy foundation with the arms, and then once you've found the little bit of balance, then seeing how we can kind of test our balance to build the strength there. Okay, so hopefully we are all nice and warm. So I'm going to teach you a traditional headstand. The other variation of headstand is perhaps tripod. I mean, there's several other variations, but the one we're going to focus on today is traditional. Some people find this the easiest one, some people find this the most difficult one. It all depends on personal preference. So we're going to take our time and just find it for ourselves maybe. So take a moment, you can start in a little child's pose. Bring your forearms down to the mat and then bring opposite hand to the opposite elbow. And that's how far apart you kind of want your elbows here, so they're underneath the shoulders. And then bring the hands out in front and interlace the fingertips. That is your setup for your headstand. So we've got this strong kind of sturdy foundation. And then when we think about bringing the crown of the head down, you're not coming onto the proper top of the head here. You're more kind of coming to this slight more towards the front portion. If you're really coming onto the very top of the head, you're perhaps going too far back, and that's probably going to cause you to then roll over. So kind of on this front portion here, you nestle the head down, find a steady focal point behind you. So you might kind of look between the knees, find something on the wall, and then just play for a moment, tucking the toes under and lifting the hips up high. And notice how this feels here. You want to be pushing down through the forearms, so you can perhaps almost slide a piece of paper underneath the crown of your head, so that we're not fully resting all of our weight down through the crown of the head here. We're actively engaging through our forearms. You can take a moment, you can come down, maybe take a few neck circles here, just getting the head and the forearms used to that setup. If that in itself feels uncomfortable too, that might mean like limited shoulder mobility perhaps. If you struggle getting the arms above the head, trying to get the kind of elbows in line with the shoulders, that means we kind of need to open up through the shoulders a little bit more before kind of attempting these inversions. I mean, we can still attempt them, it just might mean it's a little bit more tricky, okay, or might take a little bit more time to find that balance. So it's just things we all need to be aware of. So once you've had a moment, let's find that foundation again. Checking the distance, interlacing the fingertips, bringing the crown of the head down, tuck the toes under, hips to the sky. Now, before we even think about taking the legs off, I see so many times in class people trying to kick up from here and kind of sending the legs into the air. That's not where we want to go. First of all, we really want to establish these hips over the shoulders. So we walk the feet in as close as we can. Yes, that relies on a little bit of hamstring flexibility, but we can also bend in the knees. Yeah, we don't have to have the legs straight. We can walk the feet in as close as we can. From here, you may just want to play, bring one knee into the chest, then the other, and then again, you can take a little break, settle the knees down, roll up through the spine. Whenever you're kind of coming out of these inversions, I would recommend taking a child's pose just to kind of let the blood flow out from the head down through the rest of the body. And you can roll up through the spine slowly. Don't try to come up too quick like I just did a moment ago, because that's going to probably make you feel a little bit dizzy there. So this is all about taking our time. Okay, next thing we're going to look at maybe taking the legs into the air. Now, one thing I would definitely suggest, let me just get my hair out of the way. Okay, one thing I would definitely suggest is first establishing the hips over the shoulders and then taking one leg to the air, coming onto the tiptoes of that bottom foot. You may then be able to float that bottom knee into the chest, and that's going to keep the tailbone tucked here. So if we're coming into a bit of an anterior tilt with the pelvis, that's going to take us into a slight back bend. You might find balance here. That might be easier for you if you've got tighter shoulders. But if we want to find that long line, we want to keep the tailbone tucked. And then from here, maybe we lengthen the other leg to meet it. We point the toes, we squeeze the bum, tucking that tailbone under, pulling the ribs in. And gently coming down, releasing one foot, followed by the other, taking a child's pose. Okay, fabulous. So that's what I'd recommend rather than kicking up. Now again, I know that requires a little bit of hamstring flexibility, so what you can do, you can place blocks underneath that bottom foot to make it a little bit higher. Another thing you can do is come into a tuck position first of all before sending the legs up, and actually that's probably going to make you feel a little bit more safer, because with the legs fairly down low in that tuck shape, if you do fall, you've got kind of less distance to go. You're already quite compact, so you can simply kind of just roll on the floor. Unless if you've got legs in the air, you've got further to go. But again, if you do fall, take a moment, take it easy. We all fall, and sometimes falling out of a inversion, any kind of inversion, gets you over that fear as well, gets you over that fear of being upside down. You can be like, okay, I fell, let's take a moment, and we try again. And we kind of think what happened in that last scenario that then made me fall, and see if we can correct it as we go again. Okay, so let's have a look at that little tuck shape. So same setup, always the same. Find a steady focal point. We walk the feet in, close as we can, hips over the shoulders. And maybe we bring one knee in, then the other. See what I mean about how we're really nice and compact? So if we do fall, we've got less to go. You might then think about extending one leg, keeping the tailbone tucked. You then can change if you wish. And then maybe we send both legs up. Beautiful. Okay. So when you start to bring in these kind of leg changes in the air, perhaps don't try to bring them in until you've got quite a sturdy balance in your headstand. But if you do feel confident bringing in any kind of leg movements, this is where that's going to challenge your balance and help you to build strength there, help you to build the control in your core. So when we do feel ourselves kind of wobbling a little bit, we then know what to do to kind of correct that whilst we're upside down. It's the same thing when you're kind of in tree pose. So I'll literally just quickly demonstrate this. Same when you're in tree pose. You notice how that foot is kind of doing a little dance here. I'm kind of over exaggerating it slightly, but it's doing that little dance because it's constantly maintaining this balance. It's constantly fighting and kind of recorrecting all those little things, those little wobbles, so the upper body can look fairly still. That's the same thing that's going to be happening in your core and in your foundation here. So let's have a little look at some leg movements, shall we? I've already done a couple. Let me just get my mic out of the way. Okay. Setting our foundation again. Crown of the head to the sky. And when you're ready, you can take one leg up. You can come through that tuck shape if you prefer. Beautiful. Okay. Now, one great one to take first of all is maybe coming down into the tuck. Make this tuck as small as you can be, and then sending the leg straight back up and repeating that a couple of times. You may then change to doing one leg and then the other. Some people like to challenge themselves and see how quick they can go here, really testing the balance. So there's a couple you can do just by bringing one leg in or both legs in. And by the way, when you're kind of testing any of these, be as close to the wall as you want to be. Yeah, there's no shame in attempting this as far away from the wall without kind of having that experience there. So be as close to the wall so it's there. But if you find that you're constantly kind of touching the wall, I would then start to take a little step back, because we then don't want to rely on the wall too much. So there's this fine line. For instance, if, let's say, let me come a little bit closer. If I am kicking up and I find that I'm touching the wall, and then I think about, okay, the wall's there, so I can bring myself into balance, that is okay, but we don't want to always rely on the wall being there, yeah? Otherwise we're going to get too used to it. So once you can find your balance, floating away from the wall, take a couple of steps back, try again there. And you don't have to go dramatically further away from the wall each time. It could be like a couple of centimeters. That's totally fine as well. Okay, what other little leg shape can we do? Let's look at a little diamond shape. So you are going to come through your same little setup. Hips over shoulders, one leg to the sky, let the bottom leg just float off. And then from here, squeezing in the muscles in your bum, let's see if we can bring the big toes together to touch. Knees point out to the side for your diamond. Beautiful. This is one of my favorite positions in a headstand. From here, you then might move to a stag, one knee to chest, one leg behind. This is also quite a safe one to take as well if you're still a little bit wobbly. You can play with then changing the legs over. Beautiful. Okay. And that's another one you can do. So I would really recommend once you're getting a little bit more confident in your headstands, to play with different leg movements. You could play with a straddle as well. You can play with different ways of coming into a headstand, like a puppy press. But yeah, just keep finding that foundation, push through the forearms enough so you can kind of slide a piece of paper in between your crown of the head and the mat, and finding a little tuck shape before sending the legs up. And rather than kicking up, find that control. So the more control you have coming into the balance, the more control you're going to have when you're there. Because if you're kicking up, you're kind of trying to catch that balance straight away, whereas if you control it up, you can steadily bring yourselves there. Yeah, so a couple of things to try when you're practicing your headstand. As always, let me know if you find these helpful, and yeah, happy headstanding. I'll see you soon.